Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday. My name is Ashley Young, the Program Specialist for MFSUS, and I am joined by my many wonderful colleagues whose creativity, dedication, and collaboration have brought us this amazing event. Today, we have the honor of being in the company of Theresa Meuse, who has generously agreed to lead us through a live reading of her remarkable book, The Gathering, a powerful story that celebrates Indigenous culture and traditions. And without further ado, I'll hand the reins over to Theresa, who will offer her own introduction, delve into the essence of her book, and conduct the customary land acknowledgement.
Thank you. And I guess since it's still morning where most of you are, we would say Willie Exikpu, which means good morning. For me here, of course, it's 1 o'clock. So I had my lunch and hopefully my stomach won't growl. um, I'm going to share with you, of course, my storybook, and hopefully those that are online have received a copy. I heard that copies were provided and that you all got a little feather to go with it with some beads on it. And this is a real pheasant feather. And some people like to use it as bookmarks, or you could use it for whatever you want. It was just a little gift that went along with the book. I want to thank you very much for inviting me and being part of this. This is something new for me, and I've done some book readings before, but this is a unique group, and I'm just very honored to be here and share with you. We'll be showing a PowerPoint presentation, and so that for those that maybe not have the book, or maybe there's many of you sitting around the computer, you'll be able to see the pictures on the screen so that you don't have to be fighting over the book to look at it. So that will be probably helpful. And at the end, we'll just, maybe have a little Q&A if there happens to be any questions afterwards or anything like that. And if we have time, of course. And so if everybody's ready, I'll just start off a little bit about myself. I am Mi'kmaq. I've lived here in Mi'kma'ki, which makes up the Atlantic region here in Canada. And grew up in the community of Bear River, and I left there when I was around, I don't know, 27 or so and I moved to the city of Halifax with my two daughters, and I went to university. And that was like over 35 years ago, so I'm still here. And I just made Halifax my home. Of course, the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center here in the city is my community, and that's where I go to hang out and get community connection. And so I'm very happy and contented here where I am. So always like to start off, especially we're seeing this more and more in Canada, but also I think wherever you're going traveling now, is we're starting to acknowledge the Indigenous group of the first people of that area, and we're starting to acknowledge that and give acknowledgement to that. And so here in Mi'kma'ki, we also do the same thing, and we use a word called Jalasi. And back in October of 2021, the province of Nova Scotia deemed Mi'kmaq as the first language of Nova Scotia. So we're now seeing the welcome signs in Mi'kmaq as well as French and English now along our major highways. And smaller communities now are also putting it up. And so that first word you see there, PJILA apostrophe SI, that sounds pronounced Jalasi, and it means welcome. However, our language is action based and it's like verb based. So it actually doesn't mean welcome. It means way more than that. And what it actually means, it's about offering you the best we have to offer, giving you the best we've got, giving you our full attention. It's all about making you feel like you're the king and queens when you come to our place. And so that's what welcome actually, that's what Jalasi means. It's come in and take your rightful place. We were taught that in the days of our ancestors, when they lived in the wigwams or teepees, that you might be more familiar with that word, the fire was always in the middle of the wigwam or teepee. And when company or visitors came to their wigwam, the owner or the head of the family would tell the person to come in and go around to the other side of the fire and sit, because that's where it's going to be the warmest. And so that's a good example of how the best was offered. It wasn't always materialistic things. It was just the way it was. So that's how we've learned what Ipjalasi means. That you give the best that you got. And so when we also welcome on behalf of the Mi'kmaq, I know you're not here in Mi'kmaqi, but I am, and you're talking to me as a Mi'kmaq person, so I still would like to welcome you to Mi'kmaqi through cyberspace. And what we also know about the Mi'kmaq in our air territory is that it's unceded traditional lands. And what we mean by that is at no time throughout our history, including the treaties, did the Mi'kmaq people ever say, we give up our livelihood and our traditional way of life living here. We never ever said that. And so as far as we're concerned, this is still our homeland. We still like to use it, even though we have to abide by the laws and ownership of property and things like that. But we still see it as our traditional lands, and not just lands as in the dirt and the forest, but just Mother Earth on a whole. And so many of us still like to use Mother Earth in many of our cultural teachings and ceremonies that we do. And we also acknowledge that if it wasn't for our ancestors, we wouldn't be here today. So we always like to do that, as well as acknowledging all the spirits of our ancestors, yours, mine, and everyone's, because hopefully we can always move forward in a positive manner. And that's one of the reasons why we also like to acknowledge everybody's ancestors so that we do move forward. And on this map, I have to share this with you because this was a fun thing that was taught to me by a 9-year-old little boy in school. One day I was in the school and I was doing a presentation and I was standing up in front of the class, and in behind me on the blackboard or the whiteboard was this big paint or picture of the map, and it was huge. Like it was like, 4 by 4 or 5 by 5, like it's a big, big map. And so I'm using that in my presentations because I thought, oh, this is great. And all of a sudden, the little boy puts his hand up. He goes, Miss Muse, he said, did you ever notice the woman in that picture? And I'm like, no. And I turned around, and sure enough, you can see the silhouette of a picture, and it's actually like this. You're seeing her sideways, and it looks like her hands are folded in front of her, and it's like she's kneeling. So like Nova Scotia is like her leg part, and way up the top of New Brunswick would be like her head, and she's like side too. So you're seeing the side vision. So can you see that, or a lot of you see that vision of the female there? And so that really is amazing. I thought that was such a wonderful image, and I can't get it out of my head. And I even joke that even when I watch the local news and weather here in the TV, um, and they show the map, so they can tell you where it's going to rain and shine, I cannot see that woman sitting there. It makes me laugh how much now that's really drilled in. But that's just a fun thing I like to share. And then underneath that, you'll see a word that says Imtsunogama. And that means all my relations. In other words, we're all related. We're all connected, not just as humans, but we're connected with the animal world, the plant world, anything that Mother Earth has to offer to us. We're all connected. But it's up to us as humans to make sure we respect all that, because we know Mother Earth does not need us as humans to sustain Mother Earth. But we need Mother Earth in order for us to sustain as humans. So this is why it's very important for us to learn ways to respect Mother Earth. So this is the reason I always like to start off presentations with this page. Okay, thank you. Next page. And when it comes to Nova Scotia, I cannot talk about being a published author without talking about this elder, Rita Joe. She's the first Mi'kmaq published poet of Nova Scotia, and that was the name of her first book, Poems of Rita Joe. And she's a residential school survivor. She really grew up at a time when things were very challenging, but she still smiled. She was a lovely, lovely lady, and she actually paved the way for all the rest of us to come along and be accepted as published authors. And so I can never ever start anything without giving her that acknowledgement, and always thank her for doing that for us. And she has many books out. If you Google you'll see all kinds of her books, and they're still out there too that you can purchase as well. Okay, next page. And this is just an overview of all of my books, starting with the first one up in the left-hand corner was The Sharing Circle. And this has got 7 stories in it. And this was published actually in 2003, over 21 years ago. And it's still selling like crazy. It's still the #1 seller of all my books. And it just amazes me how many people are still interested in that book. And I love it. The second one is on the far right called Ilnuk, which means the people. That's our Mi'kmaq word meaning the people. And this one I wrote about 8 years ago. And this is a great little book if you're doing things in school that you need to have some research material for, like maybe a poster or a paper or an essay or a book review. This is a great book that talks all about the Mi'kmaq culture and all the things that pertain to us. That too is another really good seller. The next one, which we're going to do today, is called The Gathering. And this book actually, it was a nice pick because it's a hardcover. It's a beautiful book. And this actually hardcover book was an example of, I wonder how it would go if we did have a hardcover cover book. So right now, this is the only one of my books that has a hardcover. The rest of them are all paperback. So, and it's the longest story. So it was a good choice to pick this one for you. And then my last book that's just come out recently, 2 years ago, is called Sweetgrass. And it's also in French as well. And it's also going to be coming out in Mi'kmaq over the next probably year or so. So pretty excited about that. And then, of course, I'm now working on the book called The Native Friendship Center. And most of our cities throughout Canada has these centers that are so important to the Indigenous people who live in the urban settings, who live in the cities, because we're away from our communities, and that brings us together as communities. And I'm sure they probably have similar type centers as well throughout the States as well, and other countries too. Okay, all right, and next page. So this is just trivia fun. So if you ever get to read all my storybooks, these are just little trivia questions that when you get done the book, come back and see if you can answer the question. And so the one that I have up for The Gathering, you'll have to kind of listen close to the story to see if you can find the answer to this. And it says, what traditional instrument caused Alex to cover her ears the first time she heard it played at the gathering? Wonder what that was. We'll have to find out as we read the story. Okay. And when we're done reading the story, like I said, we'll come back and answer that question. Okay. All right. Next page. Okay. So I think we're getting ready to start the reading. And I just wanted to make mention that also my illustrator, his name was Art Stevens, and he also was the illustrator for The Sharing Circle. And we always made a pun. We always say art by art. So it was fun to have him. And he, of course, couldn't be my illustrator for all my books because he was always so busy and had other things to do. So I had another illustrator, Jessie, for The Sweetgrass, and she's amazing too. I love her too. So they were both Mi'kmaq as well, the Mi'kmaq people. Okay, so I don't know how I guess we won't stop to do any questions or anything now, but I think the chat line will be open and somebody will be looking at that. And so hopefully we can get some things answered that way, as well as, like I said, at the end of the session, we can have a little open discussion if that's possible. I don't know how confusing that may be, but we'll see how things work, okay? All right, so this is the cover of the book, and now we will begin reading. Alex had never been away from her parents. She loved her cousin Matthew and her aunt and uncle, but was worried about being somewhere new without her mom and dad. Soon she would be leaving with Matthew and his parents to attend her first spiritual gathering. In Alex's Mi'kmaq First Nation language, the gathering is called a Mawiomi, which means the gathering of people. It would last 4 whole days. After a long drive, Alex, her cousin, aunt, and uncle finally arrived. They parked near the edge of a big field beside the woods. From there, Alex could see a lot of people, cars, and tents. She saw teepees set up in the field and noticed they didn't look like the traditional wigwams she was used to seeing. She heard drumming and saw smoke off in the distance. She had never seen anything like it before. Her aunt and uncle began unpacking their camping gear. Alex, her aunt said when they had finished, your uncle and I have to cook the feast today. Matthew will show you around. Matthew was 5 years older than Alex and had been to many gatherings. You'll be okay, Alex, he said. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Alex smiled at her cousin and looked toward the sky. Where is that smoke coming from, Matthew? She asked. The sacred fire, he replied, taking her hand. Let's go there first. As they walked, Matthew explained how the sacred fire would be lit for all 4 days of the gathering. A firekeeper would be there the whole time to keep it going. People go to the sacred fire to pray, said Matthew. We must show respect to the fire and to anyone there. When Alex and Matthew arrived, the firekeeper smiled and welcomed them. He showed them a bowl filled with small pieces of grass and leaves. These are the sacred medicines, he said. Placing them in a fire is a way to say thank you to the Creator. The smoke helps carry your prayers. I can't do that, said Alex. My parents told me never to go near a fire. Don't worry, said Matthew. We won't go that close that you'll get hurt. Alex wasn't sure, but she reached into the bowl and took some of the sacred medicines. The elder explained there were sweetgrass, sage, cedar, and ceremonial tobacco. Feeling less afraid, Alex held Matthew's hand and walked with him to the fire. The elder told her to hold the medicines in her left hand because it's closest to her heart. As Alex carefully placed her medicines in the fire, it made a crackling sound that made her smile. The elder smiled too. Matthew and Alex thanked him for his help. We'll come back to the sacred fire later in the evening, Matthew told Alex. In the distance, the drumming got louder. Matthew and Alex began walking toward a drum being played by a group of men. As they got closer, the drumming got even louder. Alex placed her hands over her ears. Loud sounds always frightened her. She stayed very close to Matthew as they joined the group of people watching the drummers. Some were dressed in beautiful colored material decorated with beads and feathers, known as regalia. Others wore plain clothes like she and Matthew. In the crowd, Alex saw other children, and they looked like they were having fun listening. Slowly, she took her hands from her ears. Matthew saw how brave Alex was being. He told her that drumming was very important to their culture. The elders teach us that the beat of the drum is like the heartbeat of Mother Earth, he said. When a baby is growing in its mother's belly, hearing her heartbeat makes the baby happy. In the same way, when we hear the drum beat, it reminds us of the things that make us happy about Mother Earth. You mean like seeing and hearing the birds and animals? Asked Alex. Yes, said Matthew, and seeing the trees in the forest, smelling the pretty flowers, and collecting shells on the beach. Alex smiled. There were so many things that made her happy about Mother Earth. The drummers began to sing a song in the Mi'kmaq language. Alex didn't know the meaning of the words, but she still enjoyed hearing the song. People formed a circle around the drummers and started dancing to the beat. Matthew asked Alex if she wanted to dance too. Alex was about to say no, but just then a girl about her age grabbed Alex's hand and started to dance with her. Alex smiled as she felt her move to the rhythm of the drum. Soon she and Matthew were having fun dancing. When the drumming stopped, everyone smiled and some people hugged each other. A lady wearing a beautiful shawl bent over and gave Alex a hug. You are a good dancer, she said. Tired from dancing, Matthew and Alex stopped for a snack and a drink, then headed towards a big teepee. When they entered, an elder was telling a story. They found a place to sit and listen. The elder told them about all the things he saw and did during a walk in the forest with his niece. Most of the story was funny, and Matthew and Alex laughed a lot. When the story ended, the elder said that a talking circle would be taking place later in the evening and everyone was welcome to attend. What is a talking circle, Matthew? Asked Alex as they left the teepee. It's a time for people to sit and listen to each other share stories, he said. Alex was pretty sure she would never be brave enough to join in a talking circle. There's always an elder who shows people what to do, said Matthew. It makes it less scary. Alex thought about the sacred fire, the drumming, and the dancing, and decided that she might be brave enough to go to a talking circle, but just to listen. Matthew agreed to take her that night. Alex and Matthew walked across the field where people were participating in all kinds of traditional activities. They watched elders preparing a moose hide. They spread a liquid mixture onto the hide and used a scraper to remove all the small pieces stuck to it until it was nice and smooth. The elders explained this was called tanning. The tan hide would be used for making the cover of a drum, just like the one Alex had seen the men playing. Close by, some women were decorating moccasins. They taught Alex how to sew the beads, and she sewed a beautiful beaded flower onto some leather. She was even allowed to keep it. She put the flower in her pocket, thanking the women who had helped her. Next, Matthew and Alex got to stop and watch an elder build a birch bark canoe. Long, long ago, said Matthew, First Nation people could tell each other's canoes by the shape. Really? Said Alex. What was different about a Mi'kmaq canoe? Well, Matthew replied, Mi'kmaq people had to build canoes sturdy enough to use in the ocean. They rounded the ends and curved the middle of the canoe called the gunwale. They used spruce roots found underground to tie it together and use a tree sap mixture like glue to fill in the holes to keep it from leaking. Together, this helped it stay strong against the ocean waves. Alex brushed her hand along the side of the canoe. It was surprisingly smooth. She hoped she would get to ride in a birch bark canoe someday, and maybe even paddle. Nearby, Alex saw another elder making something. She noticed Alex watching and spoke to her. I'm weaving together these wooden strips called splints to form a basket, she said. What type of wood are you using? Asked Alex. In this area, we get the wood from the ash trees, she answered. Then the elder let Matthew and Alex weave a splint into the basket. Alex was amazed to find that she could do it. All of a sudden, delicious smells were in the air. The feast must be ready, said the elder. Matthew and Alex gave their splints back to the elder, who placed them in a pile. As they all left together for the feast, the elder smiled and said, If you come back tomorrow, maybe you can try to make a whole basket by yourself. They arrived at the tent set up with lots of tables and chairs. Everyone waited as an elder said a prayer of thanks to the Creator for the food and thanked everyone who helped prepare the feast. Matthew and Alex smiled, thinking of Matthew's parents. Then the lineup for food started. To show respect to the elders, everyone allowed them to be served first. There was plenty of food to eat, like salmon, wild rice, moose meat, and salads. Alex's favorite was a special bread called luski, short for luskinigan. This was their Mi'kmaq bannock, and it tasted so good. She had 2 pieces. With full bellies, Alex and Matthew left the big tent. Come on, said Matthew. It's time for the talking circle. Alex watched her cousin run ahead. She began to worry. She had forgotten about the talking circle. Alex caught up with Matthew at the teepee where they had been earlier that day. The same elder welcomed them to sit in the circle. Alex recognized the girl she had danced with. She sat down next to her and introduced herself. I'm Rachel, the girl replied. Alex smiled and looked at the elder. He held a beautiful white eagle feather and began explaining that it would be passed around the circle, that only the person holding the feather was allowed to speak. Everyone else must be respectful and wait their turn to speak, said the elder. If someone does not want to speak, they can just pass the feather to the person on their left. Alex was relieved she didn't have to. The elder told everyone his name, where he lived, and a little bit about his family. When he had finished, he passed the feather to the next person. Alex loved hearing everyone speak, but got nervous as the feather made its way around the circle. Finally, the feather was in Rachel's hand. I thought I would be too scared to talk, she said, but I liked hearing about everyone else. Rachel went on to share about her family, her home, and her cat called Patches. Alex couldn't believe Rachel had been scared to talk. She was sharing so much. Finally, Rachel passed the feather to Alex. Alex got ready to pass it on to Matthew, but something happened. Holding the feather made Alex feel brave. She smiled and held it close to her heart. My name is Alex, she said, and I was scared too. I was even afraid of coming to the gathering because I'd never been to one before. And today I learned so many things, and here I am talking in a circle. I am so happy I came to the gathering with my cousin Matthew. Alex passed the feather to Matthew. She'd done it. She'd talked in the talking circle. Nobody had laughed or made fun of her. Alex smiled to herself as she listened to everyone else speak. By the time the talking circle was over, it was getting dark. As they began their walk back to camp, Alex reminded Matthew about going to the sacred fire again. Using their flashlight, they found their way across the field. When they arrived, the same elder was still at the sacred fire, and he welcomed them again. This time, Alex knew what to do. She and Matthew sprinkled their sacred herbs in the fire. When she heard the crackling sound, Alex thanked the Creator for all the wonderful things she had learned so far at the gathering. Matthew and Alex wished the elder good night and headed back to their camp. Matthew's parents were waiting for them at the tent site. Did you have fun today, Alex? Her aunt asked. Alex told them all about her day. I gave an offering to the sacred fire. I danced, had looski, sewed beads on leather, saw leather being tanned, and learned about canoes. I even talked in the talking circle. I'm so happy there are 3 whole days left. Tomorrow I get to make a basket for myself. Alex's aunt and uncle told her how proud they were of her. They hugged Matthew and thanked him for taking such good care of his cousin. One by one, they entered the tent and crawled into their sleeping bags. Alex laid in her sleeping bag, thinking about her amazing day and about how glad and brave she was to come to the gathering with Matthew's family. She drifted off to sleep with the sounds of drums and laughter filling her heart. And there you have it. And now we can go to the next page, I think. Yeah, because remember we said we were going to go back to that question. And this is the one where you can maybe put it on chat if you want, or if you want to raise your hand. I'm not quite sure, Brittany, or how you would like to do this. But the question again is, what traditional instrument caused Alex to cover her ears the first time she heard it played at the gathering? Somebody like to be brave and give an answer? Oh, there's
Oh,
a hand
we
up.
have someone. Yep.
The drum?
The drums, yes, it sure is. And Nicole Rushton, oh yeah, drums, yeah. Yes, it was the drums. And I remember the very first time I heard the drums played like that, it kind of scared me too, because it's loud when they hit the drums and their voices are so beautiful and loud. And when it first happened, when that first beat hits the drum, it made me jump. But then after that, I get used to it, and now it doesn't bother me anymore. Has anybody ever heard the big drum played like that before? Some people maybe. Well, if you ever get a chance, don't let it scare you, because but it is a little loud. Okay, can we go to I think it's just the last page. It says Walalioke. And when we say Walalioke, if I say Walalin, I'm saying, excuse me, thank you to one person. But when I say Walalioke with the Q at the end, it means I'm thanking everyone in the group. So that's what I say to you all is Walalioke. Yeah. Okay, now I'm not quite sure, Brittany, or how you'd like to move forward, but we have a couple minutes left, I guess, to open up the floor, or however you wish to. We have any questions or discussions about the book, or any comments? Just comments.
If anyone has a question, they can go ahead and ask.
Oh,
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
feel free to unmute yourself if you do have any questions. I would like to say that that was wonderful. I actually learned a few things as well. And it's so beautifully written, and the illustrations are gorgeous.
I love the vibrant colors too that he was able to use. I think it really helps with the pictures. And one thing too, like when if you heard that the wear, the dresses and the um, regalia that they wear, we call it regalia. We don't call it costumes or outfits. These regalias, every piece of that is made for that individual. So each regalia that somebody's wearing has a great story. And every piece of that, on every piece that's made to make that regalia, has a special story, or a story that maybe a piece was given by someone he loved, like his grandmother, or maybe he earned that feather doing ceremony. Like, so everything about it is regalia. So we never call it outfits. We also don't like to see people dressing up like that at Halloween time, because we find that's disrespectful to dress up in our regalia, because our regalia has a spiritual connection to us and has special meaning. So when somebody is dressing up like a quote Indian for Halloween, we find that very disrespectful, and it kind of makes our heart sad when we see that. So we try to promote that as well. Like, no, it's okay to the other thing about regalia too is you can take pictures and you can go up and ask them, but you never touch somebody's regalia without asking permission from that person first. So I just wanted to share that as well. And welcome, Catherine. Angie, thank you.
Well, if no one has any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up this session. But I would like to say thank you so much, Theresa. This was wonderful. You put so much personality behind the reading and the presentation, and we really appreciate it. It was wonderful.
You. I really enjoyed it. I like I said, it was I haven't actually read that story for a while, so it was even kind of fun because I forgot that. Oh yeah, I forgot I talked about that in the story. So and now hopefully too you can check out in the library or the schools. A lot of schools will have my books in their libraries, and if not, tell them to get it in. And also my new book, I think it's going to come out in 2025, the Friendship Center. I'm really excited about that. And just a little background on that was I actually wrote that story a couple of years ago. And then I got to go work at the Friendship Center here 2 years ago, right after writing it. And I worked there for over a year and in a special project. And oh my gosh, once I got to work there, I really got to learn how the Friendship Center works. So I had to come home and redo the story. I had to add more to it. So it's actually, I had to add a couple more chapters to it now from being working there. So I'm really excited for that to come out as well. So,
Well,
yeah.
we'll definitely keep our eyes peeled for that one. It sounds like a great. Oh, Catherine
Yeah.
says she loves the book. Her daughter probably said that though.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much to everyone who was able to join us today. We'll send the recording to everyone who wasn't. And thank you so much for autographing the books and sending those feathers and
You're welcome.
everything.
Yeah,
Thank you.
enjoy. Yeah, enjoy. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye from Nova Scotia.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
See everyone.
Bye.